All right, zoning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals work session for July 8th, 2025. And we'll start off our work session with two administrative applications. I'll read the first one. Trimble. The applicant is Trimble at 85 Girard Drive in Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-41-2-2, and it's to remove decking and slate to reconstruct existing decking like in place in kind and to install new windows, doors, and roofing within jurisdiction of tidal wetlands. Tyler?
Sure. So this is a pretty straightforward one. The property is extremely non-conforming to setbacks. Obviously, it's right at bulkhead property on Georgia. I mean, on Girard. I'm sorry. Let me pull up the aerial.
Did you say Gerard? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Gerard, right?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong one.
I'll pull up the building plans are a little easier to read. So there was some existing decking, which was in red here and here, which they're proposing to remove and then replace with the proposed decking, which is much smaller within the same footprint. Obviously no closer to wetlands since it's within the same footprint. And then the rest of the project beyond the decking is just to replace some windows and doors on the property, on the house, and then change the roofing. It's really very minimal work that they're proposing. So windows and doors, you see they're just sort of changing, window out for a larger window, some small changes to the facade, and then changing the decking, and that's it. Here's the aerial.
And there'll be some project limiting fences?
Yes, of course.
Put up? Okay.
And is there any issue around clearing on this property or anything?
The clearing is all existing on the property. It's been like, it's been like this forever. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have no problem with it.
No.
No, I have no problem.
Okay.
Motion?
In the matter of the application of Trimble, 85 Girard Drive, Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-41-2-2, I make a motion that we allow the application to go administratively.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next, we have Brunsviegel at 39 Leeton Road in Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-131-2-5.1, and that's to remove the existing 2,150 square foot residence and associated structures, construct a new 2,400 square foot residence with approximately 400 square foot of decking, walkway, driveway, new sanitary system, and associated structures, and to temporarily clear approximately 4,418 square feet of vegetation on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation. Tyler?
Sure. So yeah, it's a redevelopment of the property. They're proposing to remove the existing residence, which is slightly non-conforming to side yard setbacks. It's probably non-conforming to pyramid as well. And they're proposing to construct a conforming residence. They do get some relief from the rear yard setback. It's actually not a side yard here. They have two front yards, and they use what's called the 2/10 rule, which is pretty rare to see because it's such a thin front to back property, that they get some relief from the rear yard setback here. But it is conforming. They meet pyramid, as you can see on the pyramid drawing. They're proposing, their current clearing right now is at 1,550. They're proposing to clear up to just under 6,000 to do the work. And then after that, they'll revegetate down to 2,305 square feet. So roughly 800 square feet of final clearing that they're going to be increasing the property by. Here's the aerial, the existing property. That line's a little bit off, obviously. Yeah, we felt like it was a pretty good project. Minimal clearing, which is what they're in jurisdiction for. The north side of the lot will be kept intact. That's probably where some of the most high quality stuff is. You can see there's a little bit of landscaping around the existing house. So clearing that's not the biggest deal. Yeah, that's all that is.
Tyler, what's the lot size?
8,000 and change.
So, and did you just say it needs pyramid or it doesn't need pyramid?
It does meet.
It does meet.
Well, it has to
Does
go
need pyramid. Well, if
It has to come for admin.
So if it needs a pyramid, this would be not administrative only, this would be variance without a hearing?
It would just have to go to a regular,
It meets.
Oh, meets,
It
I'm
meets
sorry, I thought you were saying
pyramid.
needs.
It does meet.
Excuse me,
Meets it.
It has to go administratively.
I know,
pyramid now,
well, I can
but it
neither
won't
see
then.
that from here or
Yeah.
my hearing was muffled, but,
it's pretty tiny.
and just on the clearing, you just said it's moderate or modest clearing, but they're clearing 6,000
Yeah, it's a
square
small lot.
feet out of 8,000, so.
Yeah, it's a pretty small lot. They're keeping it as condensed as they can, sanitary on the eastern front yard.
What's the character of what they're clearing? I mean, we know we've had lots of applications in this area.
Yeah.
And we know that there are pockets of dune land, that we've worked hard to preserve. There's a lot of, what would you call it, sort of degradation that's happened over the years with clearing. So I just, want to.
It's pretty woody on the north side of the lot.
That's
There's not like any beach heather, things like that, which is like, which we would be really concerned about protecting. It's still valuable stuff. It's secondary dune land habitat, like most of the area is. And they're protecting that north side of the lot. Obviously the area around the existing residence is disturbed, and that's most of what they're going to be clearing.
How much was the re-veg again?
They're coming back down to 2305. So the re-veg will be just over 3,000 square feet.
Okay, so these numbers are given. So you said they're going to clear under
Temporarily
6,000.
Right.
I understand. But
6,000.
then, sorry.
5,953 is what they're going to clear, and they're going to revegetate. And after that, they're going to revegetate 3,648.
So I was just confused between that and what it says in the notice of 4,418. So I was just trying to. It says temporarily clear 4,418. You're saying they're temporarily
That's
clearing
that's
6,000.
from the existing to the proposed.
Okay, everybody okay with this?
The re-veg plan will be conditioned on your approval.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there'll be notice, right? I mean, I'm a little cuspy on this because I feel like this is obviously a very dense neighborhood. There's a lot of
It's a
redevelopment
double notice.
happening,
It's
but
20 days versus the 10 that you normally have for a
I know.
regular hearing.
And is there a re-veg plan that you have already?
No, we were comfortable just moving forward with it. I don't foresee any issues. Andy Hammer's handling the application. I don't foresee any issues with the re-veg plan. It should be pretty simple.
I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Not happy, but I'll go along with it.
Do we have a motion?
Yes. In the matter of Braunschweigel, 39 Leeton Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-131-2-5.1, I make a motion to proceed administratively with this application.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur, thank you. Move on to our post-hearing decisions. We have Francis Yakubowski at 15 Fay Street, Montauk, for Suffolk Tax Map number 300-28-5-5.2. Size and location is 24,992.38 square feet at 15 Fay Street, East Ford Pond Residential Section, Subdivision number 3, Block 39, parts of lots 2, 3, and 4, map number 1013 in Montauk. The description is to construct a new 2,192 square foot, two-story residence with 132 square foot of entry deck, 590 square foot of secondary story deck, and approximately 275 square feet of swimming pool, 493 square feet of pool deck, pool equipment, retaining wall, walkways, driveways, sanitary system, and clear 5,880 square feet of vegetation on a parcel of land containing and within setbacks of freshwater wetlands and outside the town's pyramid regulations. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 7 variances are required for this application. 1 variance is of approximately 1.75 feet is required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the residents to be approximately 1.75 feet outside of the town's pyramid regulations along the north side yard lot line. Variances of 92.62 feet, 13 feet, 11 feet, and 4 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct a proposed retaining wall of 7.38 feet. paver walkway 87 feet, decking 89 feet, and window well 96 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. One variance of 43.6 feet from 255-430 of the town code is required to clear vegetation 6.4 feet from the edge of wetlands where 50-foot setback is required. One variance of 9 feet from 255-430 of the town code is required to allow the sanitary system expansion distribution trench to be constructed 141 feet from freshwater wetlands where 150-foot setbacks is required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And this was yours, Ed, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yakubowski. The board will remember that the hearing was held on June 3rd, 2025. We were working from the most recent survey at that time of November 8th, 2024. The applicant was represented by Joel Halsey of Lighthouse Planning. We received drawings from Powers Hancock Design dated December 11th, 2023. They were dated December 11th, 2023. We received them on January 16th, 2024. Those drawings included basic house plans with 2 elevations, drawings that analyzed the need for pyramid variance, a building section, and a through site elevation. We also received a detailed building protocol from TF Engineering that dated October 10th, 2024, which was received on November 18th, 2024. TF Engineering also provided a septic plan dated December 7th, 2023 that we received on January 16th, 2024. Mr. Halsey also provided an additional document on June 2nd, 2025, where he outlined and explained his position concerning the variances required by this proposed project. Tyler Borsak represented the planning department. This lot is a heavily vegetated 24,992 square foot parcel located on a narrow lane adjacent to Montauk Downs Golf Course. It is situated across from a significant wetland that has been reserved by the town of East Hampton. The parcel itself contains significant wetlands of its own that have been observed to retain standing water throughout the year. These wetlands are part of a now fragmented larger ecosystem that has been partially filled in as a result of road building and residential development, reducing its capacity to absorb water runoff and therefore to help control flooding in the area. Knowing this, relative to this parcel, the board expressed concern at the public hearing that if the project were to move forward, every possible effort should be made to protect the wetlands on the parcel during construction of the residence, building of the driveway, and the grading of the lot. The proposed residence is designed to have a 1,378 square foot first floor with an 814 square foot second floor. Additionally, 1,111 square feet of finished living space is planned for the basement area, but finished basement areas are not added to the GFI by our town code. Of the 7 variances noted in the TAM, the variance for the expansion tanks for the septic system is no longer required. We've had a recent clarification on this point that exempts future expansion tanks from requiring a variance. As pointed out in the TAM, the variances for the corner of the proposed pool decking, 89 feet from wetlands, the window well, 96 feet from wetlands, and walkways to the driveway, 187 feet from wetlands, are not significant. They're required to be 100 feet away. And given the heavily constrained nature of the lot, these are not considered to be significant under these circumstances. The variance for the driveway retaining wall to be built only 7.38 feet from wetlands is for over 92 feet. But the driveway is proposed to be constructed in the best and the only place possible on the parcel. The variance required to allow clearing to take place 6.4 feet from wetlands where 50 feet is required is to accommodate the construction of the driveway. The project has been designed to push the residence and its associated appurtenances as far to the west and north as possible in order to bring as much of the project into compliance as is possible. In moving to this higher ground, the roof line in the north elevation now requires a 1.75 variance for a portion of that roof. In his presentation to the board, Mr. Halsey offered on the part of the applicant to provide a scenic easement over the entire wetland area of the parcel to extend to the driveway and to the structures themselves on the east side of the proposed residence. He had originally offered 50 feet from the wetland line, and in discussions that night extended it to come up as close to the driveway and to the house was feasible. Along with it, that was originally a total of 10,000 feet, and with the additional area, it was 10,288, 28 square feet. And of course, that number would go up with the easement that was suggested at the meeting. Along with that proposal, the applicant agreed to work out a revegetation plan with town planners that would revegetate the parcel as fully as possible. Approval of that plan by town planners would be a condition of any potential approval of this application. In considering this application, several factors had to be considered by me. Is the proposed house located at the best possible location on the site? Has a reasonable effort been made to protect and preserve the wetlands on or near the site? Is the proposed development in concert with the character of the neighborhood? Well, this is a site so environmentally sensitive that I wish that it might have been in some way have been preserved or protected. I think that the applicant has made a good effort here to situate the development on the parcel in its best possible location, and that with the offer of a significant scenic easement, that enough has been done to allow this application to rise to the level it deserves the issuance of an NRSP. The TAM points out in part that the general plan appears to be in keeping with the board's past practices on similarly constrained properties, and also adds that the project as proposed represents a moderate level of development on a very constrained parcel that contains significant wetlands and steep slopes. I agree with that assessment. As to the standards, I'm going to go to reading through them. Variance standards 255-850 asks whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. To that I say no, the house is going to be set far enough back from the road that it will not be a visible problem for anyone in the neighborhood, I don't believe. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area of variances, well, the answer to that is no. Or whether the requested area of variance is substantial. It is, but under the circumstances of a constrained lot of this nature and what had to happen in order to get the planning to bring the house to where it exists, I think it's acceptable. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or in the affected area of the town, I think that this project as defined definitely has an effect, but given the nature of the parcel and the effort that's been made to provide some protection for what most concerns us, I find that acceptable. And whether the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, well, in building the house it is, but the area was what it is, and it was very hard for him. I think it'd be very hard to build on this property. It's very difficult, very, very greatly constrained. I think it's been situated just about as well as it possibly could be. And then the NRSP standards, general standards 255, 551, the preservation of natural resources, all structures and uses other than coastal structures shall be located on upland and shall be located so that no natural resource features or system designed is diminished unnecessarily. I think that, again, we see that this is, in my opinion, has been located in the best possible place to keep that to a minimum. Where alternative reasonable uses of the property are determined not to exist, I think that they looked for what was the possible best use here, which in that sense is its alternative. And alternative designs entailing smaller buildings, I certainly think that it was possible to always think of another way to restructure the buildings, restructure the layout. But for me, I found this acceptable, that the effort that was made here was one that drove it as far away from the wetlands as possible. Then under 255, 540, compatibility of the site proposed is suitable for the use and location. I think it is compatible within that neighborhood. And under K, environmental protection, the natural characteristics of the site are such that the proposed new may be introduced without undue disturbance or disruption to important natural features. There will be disruption to natural features. I think that the key here, undue, I think that they did what they could to get a building lot as far from those as possible. And then under 255-11 to 11-72D, the pyramid variance, I find that the sacrificing this is a 1.75 a small portion of the roof is 1.75 feet, requires the variance of that dimension. I think that in this location, bringing it as far from the wetlands, I'm happy to see it as far as possible from the wetlands and to live with this small pyramid variance that's going to require. And then just as in summation, I think that after careful consideration and serious concern for the protection of the wetlands, given what I consider is a plan that has made a reasonable effort on the part of the applicant to design a project most in keeping with the restrictions imposed by our town code, I'm going to approve this project in its entirety.
Thank you, Ed. Denise?
Terry for next.
Oh, Terry, you can go next. You're my boss.
Well, it's a little different spin on this. Okay. We had yes, okay, here we go. But overall, okay, there are a lot of pieces of this that don't look very egregious. The pyramid being 1.75 is something that might be livable. However, during the hearing, it was discussed that and admitted that the house could be moved slightly down, eliminating the pyramid violation entirely. And that probably would impact the pool, that it would probably impact the pool and the decking that surrounds that pool, which is pretty extensive. And as we all know, I'm bothered by the pool also because it is an amenity, well, and not of right. So this project overall, looking at it in totality, is what bothers me on this project. You have all these things that it is not a constraint, but it's a challenging lot. And it's a lot that right now it's pristine, it's covered, and it has no disturbances on it at all. So I would expect that an application coming in for this would be able to conform to just about every standard and every setback. The one exception to that is, as we know, the driveway, but I think even that could be improved upon. So I see this, I don't think this is the best application that they could have made. There's a lot of non-GFA basement space that is slated to be used. I do think this could have alternative designs. And the wetlands, as we know, this particular wetland and the area around it, there are culverts off the property and the road, and we run into this just about everywhere in Montauk around the golf course. But the Fay Street on the opposite side, the east side, is all nature preserve and community preserve. These culverts run a little bit north here and then end up going down and emptying into Fort Pond, which we know was a significant fishing site, but is now designated as troubled by the state. So I think that this does not meet the standards. None of them by themselves are particularly egregious, except for the driveway one, which might be the most necessary. But I think there is also alternative designs that they could do and come up with a less structures, less that the house itself can be compacted somewhat more. And considering this is a totally empty lot right now, I don't understand why that can't happen. As far as the standards for me, I think it does not meet the NRSP standards of 2551, but 5D2, alternative designs entailing smaller buildings or structures, reduced yards, or other setbacks or diminished or reconfigured areas of use are determined not to be effective in preventing loss or potential damage to the designated natural features, or only such designs are granted to be infeasible or lawful. And I think there are alternative designs. During the hearing, they actually said that there could be some slight changes made to the design and to eliminate, as I said before, the pyramid. And in addition, if they do not put in the amenity of a pool, there could be improvements made to this project also. And then 255-540K, environmental protection, I think the natural characteristics of the site are such that the proposed use may be introduced there without undue disturbance or disruption of important natural features, systems, or processes, and without significant negative impact to groundwater. I disagree with that. I think it does not meet that. 255-111, under clean water in J, the protection of both surface and groundwaters is in the codes, the 255-111 codes, and 255-111K, natural resource conservation, which looks to prevent unnecessary disturbance to protect our natural resources and our ground and surface waters. I think this project doesn't quite make it, and I think it can be improved upon, and I'm going to deny this in its entirety.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to go straight to it. Second story deck doesn't really affect anything. I don't have a problem with that. In terms of the pyramid, it's a small portion, 1.75, and it's due to the
Speak
topography.
into the mic, somebody can't hear
It's
you.
due to the topography of the slope. The houses will not really be above, with the pyramid, the house will not be above the roof height requirements outlined in the town code. So whether the grant of a variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to nearby properties. During the public hearing, I brought up the fact that I was concerned about the grading, and Mr. Halsey addressed that. I actually given it some thought, and I'm thinking going from 14% grade to 6, you're reducing the slope, may actually be more beneficial in terms of reducing runoff, improving drainage, and reducing soil erosion and water damage, making this design minimal in terms of negative impacts on the neighbors. So I actually think the grade change may be a benefit. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible to pursue other than an area variance. The applicant and their agents have designed, in my opinion, a very modest project with a septic system that complies to wetland setbacks. Whether the grant of a variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. The applicant is offering a 10,228.66 square foot scenic easement, and if I'm not mistaken, in terms of re-veg, they offered an additional 4,000 square feet, 10 feet off the retaining wall. So, you know, that's a lot of mitigation. So I actually think that the grade change, which was my big concern, I don't feel it's going to have an effect on the neighboring properties. I think the change in the grade here could actually have a positive impact on the wetlands and surrounding ecosystem and decrease erosion and sedimentation. The scenic easement that was offered over the wetlands and a buffer will aid in the installation of continued maintenance of the driveway and retaining wall. And this scenic easement will actually be a beneficial tool for long-term protection of the habitat. In terms of the swimming pool, this is a very small swimming pool. This is a 275 square foot pool within setback requirements. So I didn't have a problem with granting that. I feel the applicant has met the threshold for 255-551 of the town code. And I think the applicant has met the threshold for 255-540. I think strict adherence, however, needs to be applied to the construction protocol, especially in terms of native soil, sediment control, fence, earthwork, and mass grading, installation of drainage structures, and maintenance of temporary storm water controls. All of these are outlined in detail in the construction protocol prepared by David Rhodes. So for all these reasons, I will be approving this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Jane?
Yes, thank you. So it's been made clear that the parcel 15 Fay Street is a uniquely environmentally sensitive and constrained property, both in terms of its wetlands and its topography. We were told during the hearing that the applicant has owned the lot since 1981, and here we are 4+ decades later and is now in the process of developing it. Though the town has recognized the environmental significance and fragility of this area and has acquired some neighboring properties for reserve and protection, this has not been the case for 15 Fay, and I just want to declare I fully recognize that this remains a developable lot, and I also understand that driveway access, in order to access that development, it can only happen in one place, and it is no doubt at least some points going to require a very substantial variance, less than 10 feet to the wetlands. The area of the lot X wetlands is 19,998 square feet, but based on some of the data points that are included on the survey, only 7,260 square feet of the whole property are outside of the 100-foot wetland setback jurisdiction. And relative to that, 3,957 square feet, or 54% of that, will be disturbed. The area, of course, that's beyond the 100-foot wetland jurisdiction is also defined by challenging topography and slopes. I'm not going to go through the coverage and the clearing numbers. Those were part of my deliberation, but they were stated clearly in the public hearing. The site plan diagram, sheet A001 from Power Hancock Design, probably gives the clearest view of the significant amount of structure that will be between the 100-foot and 50-foot wetland setback jurisdiction, including a portion of the pool deck, the entire front entry grassed over patio pavers, the driveway turnaround area, and a lot of retaining walls. I do think it's important, I really do want to go back and just cite very quickly again from the TAM, because this does impact how I am viewing this application relative to standards. So the wetlands within jurisdiction are highly diverse, standing water wetlands, connect with the large wetland system that extends through the area. These wetlands may impact other wetlands at the far west end of Lake Montauk watershed, but more likely these wetlands flow west and are within the Fort Pond watershed. The subject wetlands, especially important in the attention of floodwaters, and improve the quality of the surface waters that eventually interact with. Construction around these wetlands can have impacts far beyond the borders of any individual property. This project has potential to have significant impact on the wetlands. And then just the last sentence here, the wetlands on the parcel collect runoff from several parcels, and any change to grade, potential to impact the flow in and around the wetlands, and the board must closely determine that all changes are both necessary as well as designed to minimize impacts. So we're told a few things. Number one, that the residence being proposed is in what appears to be the most conforming location available on the property. That was stressed by member Johan. However, that may be so, but beyond the driveway, a substantial amount of structures still do not conform to the setbacks. Second, we're told that the general plan appears to be in keeping with the board's best practices or similarly constrained properties. However, during the public hearing, I asked for some examples that would set precedent, and none were given either by our planning department or by the applicant. And 3, we're told the project represents a moderate level of development on a very constrained parcel. But, I struggle with that. It's not a standard, and given how sensitive, how environmentally fragile, and the potential for the impact of development on this lot, and putting it relative to the standards, it appears that moderate, but may not be, it does not meet the standards, that it should be the most minimal necessarily to meet their needs. So I'm not persuaded, even though we sort of hear this, said again and again. This is, we know the GFA, it's 3,200 square feet of living space. When you put all the decking and the patios and everything together, it's somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 square feet, all of which require retaining walls. So let me just go to the standards. I think, some of the individual variances taken on their own, I would not necessarily have a problem with. For instance, 18 cubic feet of variance, of pyramid penetration would not necessarily be something that would concern me. However, in totality, relative to 255, 850D, area variance standards, the benefit must outweigh any detriment, and 1B, the variance should be the minimum necessary to alleviate difficulty and preserve health, safety, and welfare. Based on what we've heard and what we see, I do not see this project as comporting with especially 1B. And running through, we have I'm not here to redesign a project, but when you look at it, we do know the pool and the pool decking do still seem, whether it's small or not, or viewed as small, it's not necessary. It seems to be constraining other improved and alternative designs that could make this project, except for the driveway, completely conforming with the wetland setbacks and minimize the potential environmental impact. And lastly, with respect to the NRSP standards, just does not comport. I mean, again, the NRSP standards tell us we cannot issue the permit unless it's clear that there are no other alternative designs that are possible or feasible, and I do think clearly there are. So for all these reasons, I'm going to deny the NRSP and the rest of the application, except for I would approve the largest variance, which is for the driveway.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with my board members on the approval. I'm just going to say that I think there are, the design is carefully, with the constraints of the property, the design is carefully thought out. And I think that basically I come down to this. I come down to what the TAM talks about, where it says, and after talking about the constraints in the wetlands, it says overall the project is a moderate level of development on a very constrained property that appears to have taken the wetland constraints into consideration when developing the project in order to minimize disturbance in close proximity to wetlands and move the development as far back as parcel as property as possible. The proposal does still require careful review and scrutiny of several aspects, but the general plans appear to be in keeping with the board's past practices on similarly constrained properties. Secondary to, also in addition to that, they make a recommendation for additional mitigation, which the applicant has given us as offered up, and we asked to increase it. And I think the mitigation in this point does push this project to the approval level. Therefore, I'm going to be approving this application. We okay, council?
Yeah, I got 3 yeses, 2 nos.
Mhm.
We're good.
Next, we have Savina Della Mata.
Before we do that, oh, okay, no, wanted to make sure the DEC permits and
Yeah, he said they had that.
they didn't have it yet.
Next, we have Sabina Delamata at 41 Gardeners Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-174-4-7. Size and location is 10,615 square feet at 41 Gardeners Drive, Beach Hampton, Section 1, Block 10, lots 34 to 38 in Amagansett. The description is to the removal of various appurtenances and construct a 338 square foot attached garage with 312 square foot of roof deck, 37 square feet of first story additions to the residence, an attached shed, sauna, 790 square feet of patios, new fencing with driveway gate, and an enlarged driveway on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-440 and variances from 255-430 minimum wetland setbacks and any other relief necessary. The following variances are required. 1 and 2, an 83-foot variance is required to allow the addition and roof deck to be constructed 17 feet from wetlands. 3 and 4, a variance of 79.6 feet is required to allow the attached shed and sauna to be constructed 20.4 feet from wetlands. 5, an 80.3 foot variance is required to construct the closest of the additions 19.7 feet from wetlands. And 6, an 88.2 foot variance is required to construct the closest of the stone patio 11.8 feet from wetlands. And 7, a 90-foot variance is required to construct the fencing 10 feet from wetlands, all where a 100-foot setback is required. The zoning district is B, residence AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Member Mary?
Yeah, so I just want to check with council, because this is we had a first post-hearing decision discussion, right? It was December 6, 2020, and there was some discussion around how we should be thinking about approvals or denials relative to some of the issues with respect to the wetlands, and we decided to table. So now we're coming back. So I just want to be clear, I do not want to repeat everything that I said when I gave my perspective on the application. Is that okay? I can just reference it. It's part of the record, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just then want to come back and having thought through again some of that discussion and input from council at the time. At this point, I am not changing any of my decisions on the variances or related to the NRSP as I outlined them at the time. So I guess that would be, I mean, do you want me to go through them again, Charlie?
Sorry,
Should I
what?
say them again, or?
I think you should
Oh, go.
state where you stand on it.
Okay.
Yeah, just, yeah.
All right,
Just
good.
for, yeah.
So to review, 1 and 2, those are the 83-foot variances required to allow the addition of the roof deck to be constructed. It's also, I guess, the garage as well, from what? 17 feet from wetlands. So I continue to deny that application. I won't go through all the rationale. It was very clear in the last session, there are reasons why, and I still don't have any reason to.
Stop.
Oh, is that
They're
the
doing
power
the-
thing?
I don't know if did you tell them? Yeah, they're
Yeah.
switching off, so we gotta let
You're
it.
probably going to get a phone call.
Yeah.
We just got to reconnect probably.
ZBA, I'm still alive.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we're still good.
All right.
okay, keep
Keep
going.
going? Okay.
All right, so we're good. All right.
And, I think at the time I had mentioned that, there was in the 1979 C of O, there was clearly, I think, 130 square feet of structure within that position relative to wetland, and I see that as pre-existing non-conforming, but don't see an ability per the standards to increase the intensity of development on that side of the house. With respect to within close proximity to those wetlands, 3 and 4, the variance 79.6 required for the attached shed and sauna to be constructed. I denied that based on my review of the standards and the application, and I reaffirm that denial now. 5, an 80.3 foot variance to construct the closest of the additions, 19.7 from wetlands. Now, 5, that is the one that's noticed here, is the close-in of a small portion on the southern side of the residence. I'm willing to approve that. And I guess per the other relief necessary, I would approve, although it's not noticed here, the other kind of close-in of the structure that's near the front entrance. So I'm sticking with those two, that approval. And I continue to deny the 88.2 variance to construct the stone patio on the rear side, 11.8 from wetlands. And I also denied the fence variance because I'm not yet clear, especially because I'm not yet clear what the buffer will be needed around the wetlands. So again, I understand there was some thinking about, well, if we don't approve a number of things, then we'll somehow lose our jurisdiction potentially over the wetlands and their restoration. But, I don't really, that's not mitigation. It's not like saying, oh, well, we won't get a certain amount of mitigation if we don't approve certain things. I don't know how this gets resolved, but it doesn't seem that this is an option, that those wetlands, and it's not revegetating, it's restoring, reclaiming, I think the word rejuvenating was, it all needs to be done. And I don't know how that gets done. This probably, to me, should have been 2 applications. One first for the NRSP related to the plan to fix these wetlands and buffer them. But without that already happening and knowing how that's going to turn out, I can't approve these other variances to think about additional development on the property. So no change to my decision.
Just recap that. The ones you're approving are what?
The only one I'm approving on here is 5. And I think what's interesting is that other portion, there's 2 kind of expansions of the GFA of the house. There's a second close-in on the west side of the house under the overhang on the front door. Now, it's not noticed, but it seems to be within 100-foot jurisdiction of the wetland to the north. It's not noticed because I think they're just noticing the biggest of the 2, but I would put that I'd approve that under other release necessary.
Well, wait a minute.
What?
You're talking about this one here.
This is 5. This one on the
This
bottom.
is 5?
That's
I thought
5.
5 was this one. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. You want to give it a shot, Terry?
Well, I haven't changed my mind since the last time either, although I was getting to the point of denying everything. It is specifically these 2 additions that I will approve, and I believe I said that at the last deliberations when we spoke. I'm just not sure which one's 5 and which one's 6. I thought it was, no, the rear deck is 6, so that I'm denying also. The garage and the roof deck I'm denying. Shed, 3 and 4. What'd you have as 3 and 4? I'm sorry.
3 and 4 is for the attached shed and sauna to be
Yeah,
constructed.
so I'm
20
denying
from
3 and 4. I'm approving 5, which is one of the additions, and I'm approving the other addition, which seems to have missed the notice. This is not referenced? This is the one that's not referenced?
It's not,
Oh,
it's
okay.
really not.
Okay.
I mean, we talked about, they were discussed at the public hearing
Right.
as being 2 changes, additions to the house.
right, and one of them over here.
Right.
Okay. So as long as the numbers match up, those are the only two parts of this project that I will approve also. And I feel the same, the same way about this wetland that no longer exists. I don't know how we set it so that the restoration gets done before anything else on this project gets permitted.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you're approving those two. Denise?
This is not a unique property in Beach Hampton. A lot of these properties were developed prior to the adoption of NRSP regulations. These variances are substantial. They're asking for 80 to 90% variance requests with 100-foot wetland setback for structures. All the structures are getting closer to the wetland than what exists now. These are huge variances, and as a board member, as a board, we have to evaluate these carefully against the standards we're given under the code. So how therefore do we distinguish this as to be unique? Well, the wetlands were flagged in 2020. New requests came in 2021. At that time, the wetland and the scenic easement corner had been filled and leveled, and the wetland on the northern property had been landscaped. These were blatant violations. Knowledge of wetlands was available to the owner, and the applicant purchased the property in 2020. So the question becomes, is the rejuvenating of the wetland enough to mitigate and approve? Correcting a violation, in my opinion, does not mean you're entitled to an NRSP. This is a self-created hardship. The owner was aware of the presence of wetlands and knew the constraints of the property. These are not the minimum variances necessary. I think this project will have a negative impact on the neighborhood and the physical and environmental conditions. Wetlands can't be buffered and protected when you're granting 80 to 90% foot variances in an NRSP jurisdiction. Just for the record, on a lot this size, the presence of wetlands is significant and offer ecological benefits like providing a nursery and sanctuary for marine food production, breeding, nesting, and feeding grounds for wildlife habitat, providing valuable protection for flood and storm control. And let's not forget, this is in a FEMA AE flood zone, elevation 10. Wetlands in this area provide a habitat for flora and fauna and stormwater control. The value of these wetlands are extensive, most importantly to the retention of holding floodwaters. And on this property, a wetland has been filled and a wetland has been landscaped. The presence of wetlands may create limitations on development, but they should create positive environmental benefits, and they should be protected. The size and scope of this project does not fit within the constraints of this very small lot, 10,615 square feet. Aerials indicate a significant increase in the extent of the lawn since 2016. And as the TAM notes, the increase of water-dependent shallow roof turf grass further exacerbates the flood potential of the immediate area, which will create negative environmental impacts on surrounding properties. Alternatives can be looked at. These are not the minimum variances necessary. And for all the reasons stated, I will be denying this application again in its entirety.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, well, we had a full discussion of this before, so along with some of my other board members, I don't care to review everything here. I think it came down to us discussing whether or not how we wanted to parse this out and what we thought. I'm going to agree with members Meering and Berger that I am willing to approve variance 5, which I think it cites one addition. I think it's meant to include both, but either way, both small enclosures were mentioned. I think that's within the footprint of the house, and that's fine. I think that the vice chair did a nice job of analyzing the fact that we do have two significant wetlands. One was landscaped, one was filled, and you can't offer mitigation for an offense for filling in a wetland. It certainly is something that has to be repaired. I would like to see it repaired. I'd like to see the wetland to the southeast to be restored and the other one to be brought back to a shape. At the original hearing, there were some proposals, I believe, from Grimes Landscape that they could do something in both locations. However, I'm not sure where that'll stand now. It was mentioned by other board members. My point of view here is going to be is very similar to what's been already stated, and that is that a lot of what's been asked for here it should have been understood would not have been possible given the constraints of the lot. I think that the damage that's done to the two areas of wetlands has been significant. I think that's a great concern for us, and I don't see any reason to allow for these other variances. I will, however, agree and approve variance 5, which I think will allow to enclose the two areas of the house that are already part of the footprint. But other than that, I'm going to deny the application.
Thank you. Yeah, this entire application is problematic for me. We have a C of O that is from 1979. That sets the baseline for what we're to look at, right? So that anything that's built after that, not C of O, not permitted, we can't look at it as swapping square footage this for that or adding. So that's problematic for me too. So I think that because it goes back to 1979, the lot still is subjected to today's codes and laws, and that being primarily, in this case, the NRSP requirements, which didn't exist back then.
Right.
Secondly, we have the issue of whether the due diligence is bothersome to me too, because we had the owner basically say that she bought the property sight unseen. With that means no due diligence was done, and we had the planner testify that their offices were open, and so that was not denied as a result of COVID at that time. All these things add up to the problem. I was leaning towards denying the entire application. I will agree, though, with my other members to approve variance number 5. I think that is reasonable. I think that all other variants are not. This is such a constrained property, and I would look to deny all the other parts of the application as well.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? So I also want to make clear that I'm denying the NRSP overall, I guess, but except for as it relates to those two variants or the one variance. But I also want to make clear, because it isn't noticed, the expansion of the driveway, I want to make sure, I think that would have been covered by the NRSP. So I just want to be very clear, because I'm denying the NRSP, I would not approve or want to see the expansion of the driveway in that area. I guess my last question is, they were going to remove a number of things that were not legalized, a lot of the brick patio, in the 1979 C of O. But I guess that just remains where it is, or do we condition the approval of
Well, I think
variance 5?
Okay, that's a good point, but I think we go again, relate back to the 1979 survey and C of O. I mean, that's right.
Yes.
Well, in
So-
gray, the things they were going to remove, there's this brick front patio in the house, which
Right, and my
is
point,
not legalized.
and I agree with you, and I think that those are being removed because they do not conform to as far as legal structures. So we're not, I think we should be clear, council, that we're not approving those to be remaining.
No, they still have to
Is that
remove
I think so. I mean,
the stuff that,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
they weren't noticed as remaining because they were going to remove them. But I guess I want to be clear that, condition of the variances for the two small expansions of the house would be contingent on them continuing to remove those parts of the patios that were not, the brick patios that were not legalized under the 1979 CO.
What was legal in 1979?
It was this and 130 square feet up here. That's it. And the house. And there were wetlands. So does it make sense what we're?
so basically, I mean, if the stuff has, if there's, I don't have the CO, the survey from the CO up. don't know if we have that, but whatever was on the CO is good.
That's the basis, I believe, that
yeah.
we're starting from, and
It's there without the benefit of
I
permits,
think
which is
this is just, an aggressive application. Just-
and just so I'm clear, I understand this part here is what you're saying is number 5.
That's what I believe to be number 5.
Yeah, you're right.
And then what is the other piece you're saying?
Charlie, go up to
The
where
upper
the
left of
front
that,
door.
right there.
Below overhead?
Yep, it's just that, it's under that overhang in the
I
front
don't have a
door.
problem with that either, but
So, okay.
And the sanitary upgrade.
And what?
The sanitary upgrade, I'm assuming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
still-
sanitary upgrade, I'm assuming you want to approve as part of the,
I mean, if they,
As part of the NRSP.
I mean, I don't know how to think about that right now because I think they were presenting that as mitigation for the whole project. So I don't know how to think about
what's that?
the sanitary system.
Well, but the sanitary system, even Brian Frank said, I believe, that it doesn't really meet that
Right.
criteria for mitigation in this case.
Right. I mean, it's,
So it's inconsequential in a sense to the decision we're making. I believe not inconsequential. I don't want to say that fully 100%, but
I mean,
I think the applicant would have we can condition it, sanitary system, but that,
I think that's.
they're not
the
obligated to
nexus.
do it under
Yeah,
this
I don't think
case.
there's a nexus.
I wouldn't,
personally-
if they're only
what
doing
we're
those small
approving.
additions, it's not mandatory to upgrade it.
Yeah.
It's not, so if they can, if they want.
Right.
How will our decision to allow the number 5, variance 5, affect the restoration of the wetlands and the replanting of the wetlands?
Well, that's in the courts. That's going to be
So that's not
decided by
gonna
the
be part
courts, I
of
believe, right? So that's,
Part of our decision, right?
yeah,
No,
How do,
that's
but
part of the.
Can I-
my
that's a
vote.
code enforcement issue.
That's why,
Right.
yeah, that's why I denied the whole thing.
Thank you.
okay. Sticky one.
So we're not conditioning it on the restoration?
Oh, that
don't
is
think-
one of the
can
reasons
we?
I denied, because we weren't conditioning it. I mean, if that would be a condition, I might change something, but I don't think we have that jurisdiction. So that's why I denied the whole thing.
No, I don't,
don't think- are they gonna-
but I'll
can we
debate you, I'll
condition
debate you, if you will, on
But
that,
can we
because
have a condition of approval that based on what you're approving, they have to rejuvenate that
let me
wetland?
just debate with you on that, if
Okay.
you will, because I think that's not a mitigation. You can't,
Right.
if you can't say I'm changing my decision if we make that a condition,
No,
because
no, no, I'm perfectly happy with denying the whole thing. I think it's an egregious application. But we had a lot of discussion. The attorney that was here said, we tabled it because he wanted us to think about approving part of it so that we would have access to improving that wetland.
I think the
That
wetland
was
must,
on record.
I think the wetland must be reestablished.
Right. And
I don't think it changes the condition of whether we're
Well, I
approving
think
or
it's-
not.
it's a different than a-
It belongs there and it needs to get back there.
Well, if it's different than mitigation, where like if it's a re-veg and I'm saying I'm going to re-veg more than I needed,
Not a
needed to, that's mitigation. Whereas this is restoration.
I don't think it's I don't think it's a mitigation.
so Charlie, can I ask, because it was not clear well, I want both of them have to be restored, but I wasn't really clear, really the process in the justice court. So is the justice court, about fines and things like that? Or, I mean,
Well, there's a
but-
fine aspect
hold
to
on,
it, but
hold
it's
on, let
not
me-
simply fines.
yeah,
They
but
they don't let you get out of justice court unless you do it's more about compliance in justice
But what
court.
what I'm trying to ask is, this is violated code, our natural resources protection code by destroying wetlands, right? And so is it in the justice court's jurisdiction somehow to say, oh, you know what, you don't have to restore them? Is it? How can it be?
It could be, we stand that, so can we
Can we put something into
condition this, the question is, can we condition, and I would support it as, of course, is can we condition our decision on the restoration of that wetland?
Both wetlands.
Yeah. Yes, I think,
I think we should do that.
Yeah.
if you give an approval, if you deny it, then no.
I think we should.
And as far as justice court goes, justice court is justice
Restoration.
court, and we have no, we have no
Both.
power over what they do.
They can
and
do whatever
They can
they
do whatever they want.
That's
That's
correct.
the answer.
And that was the, yeah.
The judge is,
Yeah.
Right.
the judges and the prosecutors rule over there. That, we have nothing to do with that.
Right.
All right, then, so it's both wetlands, the restoration of both. And I mean, I really think there should be a buffer, but I don't know, we can go that far right now, but.
All good?
So just to be for clarity, so I have, this one's a little, so
Full denial.
we have a one full denial and 4 approvals of variance number 5,
Yes.
subject to
Restoration of the
restoration
wetland.
of this area.
And at the top,
At the top
And
is
at the
another
top,
wetland.
where that other, at the top, the 2 wetlands pursuant to, Tyler, is there a re-veg plan or?
I don't know.
No,
Well, that'll
not
be
yet.
condition, obviously.
I mean, I think they're gonna
Not
come to, they're
produced
gonna need, they're
Okay.
gonna need an
If
NRSP
there's
from
one
us
already,
to
then
do
we
it.
Just sign off on it when a building permit.
Does this fall under every other,
Yeah, the restoration,
this can fall, I don't know if they require an NRSP to do that, or this is,
I think they do.
is this fall under any other relief necessary
For the what?
No.
for the wetlands? It's not noticed.
I thought when I read the code, anything I say, anything you do that clears in or around wetlands or changes wetlands or does anything I thought needs an NRSP.
Well, if it's, well, you're saying it's not a wetland right now, right?
It's not what, sorry?
So it's not a wetland because they filled it in.
Right.
Or
Well,
can
no,
we-
it's-
Can we condition it subject to approval of the planning department? I don't,
Has to be.
but the restoration is more than just a re-veg. And I didn't see a plan. They mentioned the
There's no plan.
re-veg plan a couple of times, but we don't have one.
No, we don't have a re-veg plan.
I mean, it has to be reviewed by Brian and,
Yes, that's the hearing.
I mean, because it's more than just a re-veg, it's excavating,
It's the excavation.
it's,
Tyler, what's your thought on this? I'm just going to ask you.
I mean, as far as the restoration, generally speaking, and that this isn't like new information, just generally as far as townwide, we don't require natural resource special permits to fix violations.
Right.
We don't want to
There you
use like
go.
an NRSP as like a punishment. They should just fix the violation.
Uh-huh.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
So can
So
we-
that's why it's not noticed, is my guess.
Yeah, so can we,
That's not.
can we
it would
condition
just
it?
Add another year to somebody. We want them to fix this.
We want them to just fix it. We don't need to
But
force them to go
properly.
through a process to do that. We just want it fixed.
But can we condition it pursuant to planning department approval?
A legal question.
Yeah, yes, well, we don't have a as far as if they're a re-veg restoration plan, they would need to provide and be approved of. That had to be signed off on by natural resources or planning department.
I mean, I wouldn't want to leave it just up to a landscaper's whim on how to do it. I mean,
No, it
listening
needs
to
be-
Brian,
It
right?
needs to be approved,
Yeah.
but I think requiring an NSP at this point is going to really slow down the process a lot.
We could go, admin, right? I mean, if it doesn't need one, as long as it's,
Because we want the wetlands
yeah.
reestablished, and they should be reestablished in advance too, right?
So can the planning department go by the original flaggings that would,
All right,
as a guideline?
Chuck,
Yeah.
Council, what do you think about this? Condition it on the reestablishment of the wetlands prior to the issuance of a building permit,
Yeah,
subject to approval of the planning department.
yeah, so they would have to provide a re-veg
That
plan,
guarantees those wetlands.
and then
Mhm.
planning department has to sign off on it. They have to do
Right.
the work, that has to be inspected, that has to be signed off on, then they can get a building permit to do the work.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Great. We good?
I would be very happy with that.
Definitely.
or they just might just not do any of it, but.
Interesting, right?
Very.
Okay, next we have Chill 24 LLC at 24 Cow Hill Lane in Wayne-Scott, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-197-1-29.6. The size and location is 23,987 square feet at 24 Cow Hill Lane, Mid-Hampton Mall, Block 19, parts of lots 9 and 10, filed July 29, 1927 as a map 625 in Wayne-Scott. The description is to allow a fountain to remain within side yard setbacks and a storage bin to remain within front and side yard setbacks. The relief sought are 3 variances pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code are needed. 1 variance of 7 feet is needed to allow the fountain to remain 3 feet from the rear southern property line where 10 feet is required, and 2 variances of 2.3 and 23 feet are required to allow the bin to remain 7.7 feet and 7 feet from the side western and front northern yard lot lines where 10 feet and 30 feet are required. Zoning district is B residence, X flood zone, and a secret class type 2. This hearing was held on 6/3. This is a very reasonably simple application. There is a fountain that was built, and we had testimony that it's been there. The person that was representing the applicant in this case was the builder on a present open building permit. He testified that in 2007, he was doing work on the property under an interior designer. That permit remains open. And I think this is an attempt to close out all the permits now. The fountain, so with his testimony, he said the fountain was there. So it's been there more than 18 years. And I think that is, that's a unique, that it's been established there. It's heavily screened. This entire property is heavily screened. So I'm going to approve the fountain where it is based on, and I can run through the variances, but before variance standards, but before I do that, I want to address the bin. The applicant did say that he would remove or relocate the bin. So with that, I'm going to deny that part of the application, and it's that part. So if he wants to remove it or relocate it, he can submit that on a final survey, and the building department can look
I
at
was just gonna hop in.
I think he
It's
did
already been,
submit-
this is the new survey. He's already
it.
removed.
That's right.
This one.
So those variances are now moot. You don't even need to worry about them.
But they updated
That's right.
it here.
That's right.
It's con-
Right, and he's removed the bin.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're right. I
So
think
that's
we should
taken off.
still- Yeah.
Let me just quick go through the variance standards for that fountain. Now, there's a benefit to the applicant from the grant of the area variance outweigh any detriment of the grant of the variance will cause to the general health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or the town of a whole. I say it does outweigh. It's been in existence there for many years. There's been no complaints, and the property is heavily screened. Is the area variance to be granted the minimum variance necessary and adequate to alleviate difficulty causing the applicant? I can't say it's a minimum variance necessary, but it's been there in its entirety for over 18 years, and I think that the granting of the variance is justified in this area, in this case. Has the applicant shown that the benefit accruing to him for the grant of the requested variance outweighs any harm which will be caused to the neighborhood or the town? Yes, I do believe he has shown that. Will the grant of the variance be undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood? Only in the sense, I say no, only in the sense that it is heavily screened, that it's not detrimental to the neighborhood. And the benefits sought of the applicant be achieved by the same method feasible? I would say you'd have to say yes to that. However, again, the fountain has existed in here for 18 years and it is heavily screened. So requiring him to move it at this point does not is not a reasonable request. Is the variance, requested area variance substantial? Yes, it is. Again, it's substantial. For the same reasons I mentioned before, I will approve that. And is it self-created? Yes, it is. So with that, I will approve this application. Vice Chair?
I agree. There's not much more to add. You know, you're right. The fountain's been there forever and it's not visible from the street. It's heavily screened. And there's never been any impact or problem on the part of any neighbors. Of course, I would deny the bin, but we have had an updated survey. I don't know if we still have to address that in our decision, but I would have obviously denied that. But I agree with Chairman Deline, and I will be approving the fountain, but denying the bin.
But that simply removes the variance
It
then,
just
right?
removes it, but do
Yeah.
we still have to address it in the decision? Because it was asked
Well,
for?
I'll bring it up in the decision to state that it was, because it was noticed as one thing and then
Yeah.
it's just, but it's
Okay.
not, you're not giving a variance, you're not denying, it's gone.
Right, it's not even there anymore. Okay, thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm going to agree, of course. I mean, the reason has already been stated. The one thing I would add, though, is whether we should require that the vegetation remain in place by placing a
that's good.
covenant
That's
over
a
the
good idea.
vegetation, because it is very close to a potential neighbor's activities. And while it's not a nuisance to anyone at this point, it could potentially be in the future. When you go on the lot, you think it's so heavily screened, it's not a factor. But of course, the screening was removed and the entertainment happened in a different way. So I'm going to suggest that we covenant that the vegetation within some number, 12 feet
That's
of
a good
either side
idea.
of the center of
Well,
the.
Peter, either side.
We
I
did
would
that in
say.
that property in Springs.
Yeah.
We covenanted.
Right. Other than that, yes, I'm going to approve, and I would have denied the shed, although it's no longer a factor. Thanks.
Yes, I'm looking to approve the fountain also. It's rather large and would be unwieldy, I think, to remove. And the bin was removed. Could you just go down on that survey? Show the survey by dates and stuff. Those updated?
It's actually so pretty.
June 13th.
Yeah, June 13th, okay.
Very pretty.
Yeah, I mean, the only other comment I have, more, the planner at the time said there were 6 permits, 5 of them are open. And the fountain and the bin were the only 2 things keeping them from all closing, so this will end that problem.
Okay, yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. I don't, and including specifically the interpretation of the standard, the benefit to the applicant, which is not having to pick up and move this large structure, fairly large structure, outweighs any potential detriment. I do just want to say for the record, I often deny setbacks, right, to side and fronts and even rear yards, again, because I believe that the intent of that code is to just ensure that there's no noise or activity. So when I deny, it's usually because there's something that will bring a certain amount of activity or potential bother, which I don't see here, I guess, unless somehow the played music or something like that. I do want to check, when we grant this variance for this setback, we're granting it only for a fountain. Like, this doesn't give them the right to put other things potentially in with this kind of setback relief, right? Is it specific for this structure as it exists?
Yeah,
I think so. That's
For
what's
this.
before
Yeah.
us.
Okay,
it's not just a general,
right. So
Setback
if the
variance.
fountain goes away, that's it. There's
yeah,
nothing in perpetuity that stays in terms of
they could have another fountain.
non-conforming setbacks.
They could rebuild the fountain if they wanted
Yeah,
to.
that's found. Okay, thank you.
So one question is, one member mentioned, everyone approved it, one member mentioned a covenant, but no one else did. What's
I
the,
think the board agrees. Would we agree
Yes,
with
I
that?
agree with that.
But I think that's a good idea.
12 feet either side
of what?
of the
Center
fountain.
line of the fountain.
In other words, they don't have to covenant the whole property line. It's
Yeah.
Just that
give to-
Of screening of what nature? Of a fence, of a
I
what?
mean, maybe, I think
No,
it might
vegetation.
might be better
Vegetated.
now,
to say
doesn't it?
maintain what exists today, because it's pretty well screened.
Comparable to it.
I don't know what's there now.
It was pretty will
Yeah, it's-
screen, can they
it's,
just
um,
maintain it?
Maintain a 6
If I
to 8
recall,
foot
it's like a
vegetative.
arborvitae type of hedge, so, but let's, if you want to limit it, you can say
Well, there's some vegetation there, actually. I can see the clearing line
it's
now.
high vegetation there now,
There
but
is, yeah.
Yeah, so there's yeah.
adequate, can we say adequately to screen the height of the
Fountain.
fountain?
From the neighbor, from the property line.
And I like that I did going 12 feet in either direction, right?
From the center line.
Yeah, that's a-
Okay, that makes sense.
Good?
Yep, all good.
All right, next we have Alan and Karen Burke at 1859 Montauk Highway, Amagansett. So that's map number 300-131-1-11.1. Size and location is 7,503 square feet at 1859 Montauk Highway, Montauk on the Sea, Section A, map number 2438 in Amagansett. So the description is to clear 6,567 square feet of vegetation and construct a new 1,343 square foot of one-story residence with 396 square feet of first-story decking, a 225 square foot roof deck, driveway, sanitary system, and associated structures within jurisdiction and setbacks of freshwater wetlands and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. Variances of 47.5 feet and 58 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct a proposed residence 52.5 feet and decking 42 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. 1 variance of 26 feet from 255-430 of the Town Code is required to clear vegetation 24 feet from the edge of wetlands where 50-foot setback is required. 1 variance of 45 feet from 255-430 of the Town Code is required to allow the sanitary system expansion distribution trench to be constructed 105 feet from freshwater wetlands where 150-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. And the zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Just before we begin, Member Maring, I think this again is an expansion tank, which we've established does not require, we shouldn't be posting. Is that right?
Well, it's the other part that I think it's the actual, because the
Oh,
expansion
this could
tank
be
is
different?
in.
Oh, well, okay, we can get there when we talk
Yeah,
about
I
it.
mean,
Go ahead. I'll
okay,
let you go.
okay, yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as was called out in the public hearing notice, this is a small lot of 7,503 square feet that puts it at 62% pre-existing non-conforming undersized to the B residence zone minimum. As we know, this property is currently undeveloped and is densely vegetated. It sits in the Napeague stretch between the north side of 27 and the Long Island Railroad tracks and right-of-way, and across from what we often refer to as the White Sands neighborhood. It's impacted, the lot is impacted in, and I think most of the lot is in jurisdiction of wetlands, which on the survey you see are above the northwest corner of the property. The applicant was represented by Joel Halsey at Lighthouse Land Planning. Just to confirm, the most recent survey date I'm seeing is May 9th, 2024 from James P. Walsh. The TAM was from Tyler Borsak, dated May 6, 2025. One member of the public, Mrs. Pat Kennery, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, identified herself as being the neighbor at 1867 Montauk Highway, so that would appear that she's was a notice neighbor and perhaps her property actually adjoins or is next to this one. And she raised her primary concerns and questions seemed to be about the high groundwater issues on her own property and the surrounding parcels. And she was generally seeking more clarity about the application. I do believe Mr. Halsey actually spoke with her individually, and I appeared like he said he wanted to address some of her questions. So I don't think there were any other comments into the record. The current application is for I think it's a 2-bedroom, 1,343 square foot, 1-story house with some decking. And and as no other accessory structures or appurtenances. And of course, there's an septic system and drainage structures. As a reminder, as we discussed at the hearing also, there was a previous approval from the zoning board I think back in 2007 for new development on this lot that was granted. It was for a two-story house that was 32% bigger in terms of GFA than what is being proposed now. And also reminder, note that in 2007, FEMA required different, we'll say less robust base floor elevation minimum. So that code was less stringent at the time. As everyone I think here knows, that those FEMA minimum elevations were increased in 2009. So the pre-existing approval would no longer comport with current FEMA requirements. This is an AE10 zone. Groundwater is pretty high here. It's at 4 feet. So the whole thing requires like an 8-foot lift. And when questioned about why because now it means the coverage is somewhat more than the prior application, the answer, which I thought was thoughtful, which is that they couldn't achieve a two-story now with the FEMA requirements without, needing likely a height variance or a pyramid variance, and they didn't want to create new variance requirements. So as we said, they've scaled back, they're going to 1 story, but they've scaled back the GFA by 429 square feet compared with that last application. And though it's not required in an AE zone, they are choosing to elevate the 1 story on pilings. Based on my assessment of the application and all the contents of the public hearing and the public hearing file, I find this application does meet the variance standards and the NRSP standards for what is being requested. Now, numerically, the 47.5 foot variance and the 58-foot variance, the first one was for the residence, the other is for the decking, will seem substantial. I'll come back to the sanitary and the clearing in a second. However, on a percentage basis, right, and on a percentage basis, we view that as substantial. However, as I understand the survey and everything that was said, they do appear to be the most minimum variances necessary for the following reasons. Number one, most all of the lot is in wetland jurisdiction, and so this is also a reason why this is not a self-created situation. Number two, this is a moderately sized house. They're going to run at 57% of what was the max GFA under the existing code at the time of the application. And just for reference, although we can't necessarily consider the new code, it still puts them well under even what the new GFA code is. And three, by placing the septic system in the best possible position at 105 feet from the wetlands on the south front yard, that really starts to restrict, there really is no ability to move the house even further forward to let alone eliminate or create a smaller variance. The agent made clear that they did consider alternatives, and as I said, they do not believe they were feasible in any way to eliminate or even reduce the variances without creating a need for others. And again, not a self-created issue because of so much of the property is in the wetlands. I also do not see a 1,343 square foot house without a lot of other appurtenances or structures to create any detriment to the neighbors or the surrounding character of what's currently built around. With respect to the NRSP standards, also per my deliberation already provided, I believe it meets all the standards in terms of compatibility and environmental protection. The one thing I took a little pause about was when I looked at the clearing, it's clearing 89% of all that vegetation, which kind of made me jump back, but we did discuss it. And, it's a bit ironic that trees, trees have to be removed to create room for these very large drainage fields that are required by code. And for, we need a shallow drain field for the septic system, which also takes up space. So, we know that trees can mitigate some of those issues, but that's the code. And so, especially since they're putting the thing on pilings, I do feel that it meets the environmental standards of the NRSP. So I'm approving all the variances for the septic system, and also the clearing variance relative to the 50 feet from the wetlands. Again, I think that's driven by the required drainage fields. So I don't think there's any way of reducing or eliminating that. So I'm approving the whole application. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, well, I agree with Member Muring. Well, she already covered everything. The original approval that had been done for the two-story house. Now, with the changes in FEMA, it's already addressed. This is a one-story house. It will be put up on the pilings. And the wetlands that, the property you can see on the survey is wetlands on three sides. And the wetlands, I don't see them quite as really a lot, 47.5 for the residents and 55 for the decking in this case. There's no way around it. And the wetlands, I believe, are, there was testimony that might be not in the best condition either because the railroad tracks are right by it and maintenance work gets done around them. So I do think this meets all the standards and also the NRSP code standards, and I'm looking to approve the whole thing, the whole project.
Thank you. Denise?
I agree with my fellow board members. The house is minimal in size compared to the 1772 two-story residence with decking. Associated structures approved in 2007. The proposed house also meets pyramid. So we have a house that's actually 429 square feet less than what was approved in 2007 by this board. And that approval had no proposed drainage and a standard septic system with a shallow leaching field. FEMA regs have changed regarding the first floor elevation requirements since 2007, which triggered the change in their design. The additional clearing is due to the footprint of the residence and the inclusion of dry wells, which will improve the drainage on the site. The project seems to be in compliance with surrounding developments, and the wetlands on this site do not allow for a conforming location for any structure. This is a modest residence designed to minimize impacts, and this project has more mitigation, I think, than the 2007 determination. The project is compatible with the character of the neighborhood, specifically compatibility. The scale of this is modest, and it's appropriate to the size of the lot. It also, 255-540 also addresses the environmental protection, and the planning department has not addressed any negative impacts as a result of this construction. I will be approving this application in its entirety, with obviously all the recommended project conditions outlined in the technical analysis memo.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what my fellow board members have said. They've actually covered it all. I think the critical thing here is the 2007 approval for a larger house. And then coming back now that FEMA regulations went up with a one-story house. I'm personally very happy not to think of trying to look at a two-story house on the stretch there any more than we have to. We struggle all the time now with new FEMA regulations. What does it do? Impact on neighborhood? What does it do for sight lines? Here's one where an effort has been made to save us some of that. I think that everything that was mentioned, the only one thing I wanted to mention was that the septic, which is taking up a lot of room, they mentioned that they were using the shallow leaching galleys, which will reduce the visual impact. We're not going to be asked for retaining walls and coming up 3 or 4 feet. So in that case, I think that was a positive. Everybody, it's all been mentioned. I think it's a solid application. I think these sites are difficult. I think the pocket wetland we should be sensitive to, but did not show up in 2007 when they were was not on any of the proposals then, so obviously it's something that had to be dealt with now. I think it was a solid application, and I'm going to approve it in its entirety.
Thank you. I will agree with my board members, and I have nothing to add.
Okay, next.
All right, so the next two applications I was absent for, I'm going to step down and ask ask our alternate member, John Thorson, to come on up, and Vice Chair.
Make this shift.
Okay.
Slide down and
Slide
rotate.
down. We should do this to music. Okay. All right, John, you good?
Yeah, it got hot.
John?
I wonder if the AC went out when the power.
All right, where are we? The next decision will be for Alexandra Marie Noble and Rose Melandratos, 48 Treasure Island Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-175-5-20. Description is to allow an existing stone area, fence, and shed to remain within jurisdiction of beach vegetation and side and rear yard lot line setbacks. Relief sought, a natural resource special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 2 variants are required for this application. 1 variance of 8 feet is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow gravel area to remain 0 feet from the northern side yard lot line where an 8-foot setback is required. 1 variance of 8 feet is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow the gravel area to remain 2 feet from the western rear yard lot line where an 8-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10. Member Mary?
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, the public hearing was held on June 24th. The applicant was represented by Mr. John Huber of Balsam, Schmidt and Huber. No member of the public participated in the hearing or submitted comments to the public hearing record. We're working off a most recent survey dated January 18th, 2024 by Tim Taylor, East End Land Surveying. The TAM is dated May 27th, 2025, and prepared by AKRF consultant Alicia Moore, although Tyler Borsak appeared on behalf of the planning department at the hearing. The existing conditions memo is also from Tyler in the record. In addition, I just want to state on the record that the applicant's agent submitted 3 substantial memos or exhibits. So there was a memorandum of support. There was an exhibit exhibit 2, which was the photo packet, quote, depicting outlying neighbors' conditions, can't remember writing. And then there was a third one, a memo, exhibit 1, documentation, references. And I just want to make clear for the record that I did read in full and considered all 3 of these things in my assessment of the application and relative to the standards. So, and we also have in the record for review and consideration that there were 3 prior ZBA determinations on this property, which is interesting. I don't think we always have that kind of lengthy history of determinations. One was dated back in 1993, which was for a very substantial lot line variance, setback variance for the proposed rear deck. That was denied, and the board was clear that they didn't think that large setback was appropriate. Now, at the time, the prior owner was able to use what was, I guess we'll call it the brick and sand loophole, and established a patio that, as you can see from the survey, is almost on top of the property line, and that continues to exist as a pre-existing non-conforming structure. In February 2005, there was a determination for a public hearing, which was asking for 2 lot line setback variances. One was a very small one for the, like 6 inches relief, setback relief for the front deck. And there was a very large, I think it was like a 90% variance for the south, a proposed, well, it was actually already built, I think, the side yard deck that extended into the right-of-way. That was denied strongly by that board, and thought that, I think they might have used the word egregious, and they denied all of that side yard, south side yard decking. They approved the front yard one. And that somehow got legalized, which pretty clearly was probably mistakenly on a 2008 C of O. So that, although it was cut back from what was proposed, it still is completely non-conforming to the side yard setback. And then most recently, many of my fellow board members were on the board at the time in 2023, January 24th deliberation, there was another request for side yard setbacks for this time for a shed and a variance that was also like almost a 90% variance, and that was denied by the board. In addition, in that application that was denied was an NRSP for that the gravel area that is actually now in front of us for variance relief. And so that was denied. So, we have 3 decisions demonstrating the board has consistently felt over time that large setback variances are, in their words, not appropriate on this lot in this neighborhood. And I think that's, something that I think is important, for at least in my consideration. The request for this application is for that, I think comes out to about 132 square feet of gravel patio that needs 100% variance on one side, and I think something like an 80% variance on the other, and is currently being used as a seating area with a kind of a portable fire pit. And it's a, so that's really the extent of the application. There's discussion about the need for the revegetation I'll come back to in a second. But again, the theme seems to be that, well, in terms, so this is a very substantial, even though it's not a large area, these are very substantial variances. They don't meet the standards in terms of they're not the minimum variances necessary. There are other places and other positions to create a space that they say they just want for seating and conversation and reading. And the issue, I think, if all the boards before us have continued to believe that these types of variances are not consistent with the standards and are not appropriate, then I think I should give deference to that history. In terms of the applicant's benefit, Mr. Huber said the main benefit, the applicant just wants to make reasonable use of the property. So I heavily considered that, but this property benefits from, 3 sets of decks that for various reasons do not meet side yard setbacks. It's a significant amount of decking. And I think relative to the constraints of this lot, reasonable use is clearly happening and able to happen on the lot. And so I don't see the benefit of this huge variances on this gravel area to outweigh the detriment that could very likely be caused for the surrounding neighbors of disturbance. And with respect to the NRSP, I also believe it doesn't meet. I know Mr. Huber tried to say that the gravel is very consistent with NRSP standards. It keeps the sand down. I would have to disagree. Sand should be kept down by dune vegetation and plantings that are indigenous to the area, and that gravel doesn't meet it. And then lastly, I want to just mention, I looked at the memorandum that had 13 examples, photos of surrounding properties. And again, I did look at those, but from what I could tell, they were all photos of driveways, which are gravel. And on top of it, we have no way of knowing what was approved by any board or, sort of the extent. So I didn't find that either as a reason to see that extra gravel area as consistent with the neighborhood. So, or with the standards. So I'm denying the NRSP and the variances for all those reasons. For the stone patio, I guess since I'm denying that, I'll be interested to hear what my fellow board members have to say, because then I'm not addressing the re-veg, because I guess that was supposed to be mitigation for these as opposed to required. So for now, I'm not going to address it.
Member Berger?
Well, this is an interesting one. I was on the board for the 2022 hearing. And there was an interesting discussion back then, from what I remember also. I agree with Member Meering, this stone deck patio, I guess, stone patio is completely unnecessary. Doesn't meet any standards, 100%. I don't know, from the previous one of 2022, I don't really understand how that ended up happening there. But, and the revegetation, there was discussion about the revegetation where they said they were offering, but what they were actually offering is, I think, about half of the amount that showed as that Mr. Huber considered revegetation, because his contention was that half of that was restored after the 2022 denial. So I am denying the beach stone patio, and it's unfortunate that some of the south decking and all got a C of O, which was C of O'd in error or defined as a walkway as opposed to a deck. But I thought there was something with some revegetation from the past that seems to have disappeared.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, they were showing, but maybe I'm not remembering that correctly. But where are the clearing numbers here?
If I recall, there is no existing clearing on the survey.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, if we're denying this, I don't see that we would ask for revegetation to be done. And I mean, all this white area was in, they were proposing the same beach gravel, right? Beach stone, as he called it, but gravel along there. I personally would rather see it remain of what it is today, and not go to the gravel. And I'm done with it. I do remember from 2022 that the applicant at the time was always trying to plant things and had intention that nothing would grow there because of bamboo encroaching from the neighbor's property and bamboo popping up on her property. So, I don't know. I think back then too, don't remember if we had a revegetation back then, but it appears that no matter what happens, we end up in a similar situation on this particular property. I would just as soon leave it the way it is today. But deny the area of the stone and let them plant beach vegetation. I'm assuming there's sand underneath it. Yeah. And let them cover that with the beach grasses. Yeah.
Member Johan?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I start with the fact that it's an extremely small lot. It's 50 by 80. They have a house on there. They have some walkways. They have some areas that they hope to recreate in. What we're being asked in this whole conversation is simply about this gravel patch in the back. The RSP is triggered because they've come in front of us at all. But we are looking at a gravel patio that they'd like to remain so they have a place to recreate. Everybody who's been to the lot, as the board has been, realize how tight the lot is. There's very little room outside of the house to do much of anything. And I can understand their desire to do that. The gravel, while it is a structure, and that was clarified by the planner when we asked him that at the night of the hearing, although Mr. Huber had said, well, you know, it's just gravel, it's not really a structure. By definition in town code, it's a structure. So it's a structure sitting on the corner of the property. It's a simple one to say, let's remove the structure. We don't want it. Let's get it out of there. And I don't disagree with my fellow board members. However, I do like the idea that the proposal for 1,400 additional square feet of re-veg was offered by the applicant. Now, the question that came up that night, is it really 1,400 feet? As was mentioned by the planner at the time, areas with trees are considered cleared. A tree is a cleared area. So putting vegetation under a tree makes it that portion. So it's possible that this is closer to 700 or 800 square feet of new vegetation. It's still 700 or 800 feet of new vegetation, and somehow a rejuvenated or a reestablished buffer over existing trees. I find that significant. If we deny this, I guess it just goes by the board. They will have to take that out. We don't get the additional vegetation. That area could be grassed and people could recreate there without it being gravel. The gravel is a problem. The gravel is a structure. The gravel should be removed. But if we do that, we have no other opportunity to take advantage of this revegetation plan. I think that the history of the lot has been talked about already, and you know, that has been in front of us, and I was on the board as well, and I remember clearly why we denied it and the language we used. This is slightly different to me because I'm looking at something where I see an additional opportunity to increase vegetation on a very, very constrained lot. 50 by 80, 4,000 feet, that's about as small as we have in this town. So they have virtually no place to recreate. In the end, my question to myself was, do we allow the patio to exist where it is, clearly in violation of an NRSP, and that, but what we get for it in terms of mitigation is this 1,400, 800 to 1,400 square feet of additional vegetation. If we deny it, there's no guarantee that that area still won't be used for recreation. They'll just have to remove the gravel. For me, when I look through, and I very much appreciate what's been said by other board members, I lean towards approving it. I approve it because I want to approve it because I like the opportunity we get to revegetate a lot that's this tight and this difficult to work with. So going against the stream here, I am going to approve this based on the notion that I don't consider that part, that deck, as illegal as I know it is, to be enough to offset 1,400 foot of additional vegetation. So I'm going to approve it, Madam Vice Chair.
Member Thorson?
I tend to agree with Member Johan. I think it is a tiny lot, and they've picked this corner to basically put down gravel, and as defined by town code, it is a structure. But if it were sand, it would perhaps no longer be considered a structure and would permit the exact same use. And if it were grass, it would require no variance. It would not be in any violation whatsoever, and the exact same use could be enjoyed in that corner of this tiny lot. So I agree with Member Johan. I think that the environmental detriment of having 100 some odd square foot gravel corner is well offset by having an additional 1,400 square foot of revegetation with native species. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote to approve this application conditioned on the revegetation plan. Yeah.
I'm going to agree with Member Johan and Member Thorson. I don't think there's going to be a detriment to any outlying neighborhood. And I do agree. I like the idea of the 1,400 additional feet of revegetation. And I think they're asking for leniency based on the size of the lot, which kind of makes this a unique situation because the lot is only 4,000 square feet. It's pre-existing non-conforming to lot width and side yard setbacks. And I also think they're simply trying to have some reasonable enjoyment of their property. So I'm in agreement. I'm going to be approving this application.
So just,
Are we good?
okay, just
All
to
of
clarify,
that
so
white
that's for the stone area, the fence and the shed? It's all,
The shed is no longer requires a
The shed
variance.
is not now in compliance. It's within.
Oh, we had to give the
Yeah, we have to
NRSP.
give an NRSP for
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
Right.
But that,
It needs an NRSP.
but it meets the NRSP.
Right, I meant to say I would approve, yeah, so
Yeah, I would
I would be
approve
clear,
that
I
too.
approve the NRSP for the shed, the new shed. So can I,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
going
gonna ask about all the gravel.
Yeah, now, on that survey, there's what Mr. Huber said, they're taking out what is grass, some semblance of grass today, when you saw the property, and they're going to put the gravel all along that area. And you're all okay with that?
I just gave my vote. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not changing my vote.
Yep. Same.
Council, do you have enough?
I think just, and then the fence too. That's the only other thing.
Oh.
No one referenced. That NRSP for the fence is good?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
I approve the NRSP for the fence as well.
Okay, just checking. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, the next is Rolando Mendoza Rivas, 94 Cooper Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-160-3-1. Description is to allow an existing pool with associated equipment to remain within the minimum front yard setbacks. The relief sought is two variances of 10 feet and 8.4 feet pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code are needed to allow the pool equipment and pool to remain 20 feet and 21.6 feet from the front yard lot line where 30 is required. Member Thorson?
The public hearing was held on June 24th, 2025, and the applicant, Rolando Mendoza Rivas, was represented by Anthony Hobson of Hobso AM Design. There were no public comments, and Morgan Slater appeared on behalf of the town planning board. All parties to the placement of the pool and the pool equipment were in error. The survey was dated March 13th, 2024. The town of East Hampton Building Department, who inspected the site and ultimately issued building permit 75796, dated March 21, 2024. The builder and ultimately the owner were all in error. The error seems to have stemmed from all parties having interpreted the Cedar Street side of the property as a side yard requiring a 20-foot setback for the pool and the pool equipment, which they met. The position of the pool and the pool equipment are outside of the 20-foot setback, and not that the Cedar Street side is actually a front yard, which requires a 30-foot setback for the pool and the pool equipment. This is as per East Hampton Town Code 255-11-10. Even though the plans approved by the building department received March 2024 are stamped that no oversight, error, or omission on the part of the building inspector or his representative shall legalize the erecting, construction, alteration, removal, use, or occupancy of a building or structure that does not conform to the provisions of the New York State Building Code and East Hampton Town Zoning Code, I believe the error was inadvertent. And as the Cedar Street side of the property is heavily screened with hedges, applying these standards stated in 255-80-50 of the East Hampton Town Code, whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or will create a detriment to nearby properties, I don't believe so. I believe the granting of the variance will not cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor create a detriment to nearby properties. Cedar Street is a heavily trafficked street. It is thickly screened. The pool, the side yard, actually the front yard, the Cedar Street front yard is heavily screened with existing hedges. So whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variance, yeah, they could remove the pool and move it 10 feet further from where it is and conceivably move the pool equipment as well. But I think both remedies are a heavy ask. Whether the area variance is substantial, even though the area variances requested exceed 25% of the required setbacks, as they won't affect the neighbor or the neighborhood, I believe them to be insubstantial. And as the northern property line is bordered by Cedar Street, thickly screened, as I mentioned, the pool equipment, the pool and the pool equipment will be virtually invisible to any neighbor or passerby on Cedar Street. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or in the affected area of the town, I don't believe so, based on what I've previously opined. Whether the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, which considerations shall be relevant to the determination, but not solely determinant, even though the remedies being sought are for conditions that are self-created, the application was abetted in this error by the town of East Hampton's building department. So for all those reasons, I vote to grant both variances as requested.
Member Johan?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with my fellow member on this one. I think that it's important, of course, to note that the building permit was issued and that the pool was placed exactly where the building permit asked it to go. It's also important to note that the pool is 20 feet and 21.6 feet away, the pool equipment 20 and the pool 21.6 feet, which means that there was not even an effort to cheat on the 20-foot mark, which we have to assume is what they thought they were required to do. I think it is very well vegetated at this point. I think that the fact that it's Cedar Street, which is, we all know, is very heavily trafficked, and the vegetation will always be necessary for anyone living there. I think we should probably still ask for a covenant on that to protect it visually from the neighborhood, and someone in the future might cut it down and have a party space. I think that's fair to request of the applicant here. But I don't see that anything was done here out of ill will or out of really sheer ignorance. I don't think there was any ignorance involved at all. They had a building permit, they put it in, turned out the building permit was not as accurate as it should have been, and we're asking them, is it something we can ask them to correct? I think we ask ourselves in all of these cases, is the detriment to the applicant greater than the benefit to the town? And here it definitely is greater to detriment than it would possibly be a benefit. So I'm going to agree with Member Thorson, and I'm going to approve this application.
Member Mary?
Yes, thank you. So if this variance request had come for setback relief, I would actually have said that it didn't meet the standards. I think violating, substantial 50% miss, or was 50, the third, 1/3 miss of the setbacks for pool and equipment in front yard don't meet the standards. However, this, I don't know how or why it happened. I know there was some suggestion it could have been, oh, we thought it was a side yard, whatever it is, the mistake was made. By the time that mistake was discovered, the bulk of the structure was in the ground. So therefore, even though to me, this is not a question of does it meet the standards, it's that the benefit of not having to move the pool, or, it would be a very great burden to make them redo the pool. And I know that mistakes by the building department, the stamp says, doesn't mean, you get to keep it, but I do think that would be a very hard penalty to put on the applicant, who appeared to believe that they were conforming with the code. So I'm going to approve the grant of the variances, both for the.
Thank you. Member Berger?
I'm going to approve it also. Mr. Hobson, right? Hobson was his name. Unfortunately, the permit was given by the building department, and it wasn't noticed until all the work was done. And like everyone has already said, we're not going to make him take out the pool and move it. It'd be a rather costly correction. And so I'm going to approve it also.
I am going to approve it also based on everything that's already been said. Member Thorson, thank you. That was a very good summation.
Thank you.
But I'm approving it too. So we have a 5-0, council.
We're going to covenant that the
yes.
vegetation stays.
And everybody wants the covenants?
Do we all agree with the covenant?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Who cares about a sight line?
Thank you.
Oh, right. There was that issue, though. Remember that came up about the
Sight line.
right-of-way sightline? Did we need to address that at all in that covenant?
I think we were told at the time that it was
That was a
the building
building
department.
or
it's a
highway
building.
department.
Yeah, okay,
Yes,
fine.
yes, that would be the highway department.
Right.
We'll be right on it.
Musical chairs.
My agenda.
So maybe I did.
I think you took it.
Oh, you think? Or maybe.
Yeah. So next, and we have other decisions, and that's Thomas 1 Zalak at 826 East End Drive, Unit 826 Montauk. Subtax map number 300-32-1-32.1-1-226, and a letter from the applicant to change the condition of the original determination. Council, you want to go over this with us?
Sure, yeah, so
Council?
he was given an approval to build a unit in the Montauk Shores condominium trailer park out in Ditch. And one of the conditions was that he can't get a building permit until they complete the sewage treatment plant that's been going through the process for many years, and it's about to be done. And for some reason, it's been the condition that was put on this approval was not uniformly imposed on other applications for this, the complex at the Montauk Shores. So basically what he's asking is that it's not quite done from my understanding, the process over the sewage treatment, but it's close. So he wants to change the condition to allow him to at least submit for a building permit while everything else is going on. So then hopefully it'll speed up the time frame for him slightly.
What are the legal implications of us allowing this? I mean, should it be?
Nothing, because from what I understand, and then talking to Brian Frank and others at the planning department, other units are getting permits right now. So it was sort of at the time, I think it was just a function of when he got this approval from the board. This was what it was required, but that has changed. So it's a change in circumstances, I'd say.
Wait. Say this again. When was this? I don't recall any in Montauk Shores condominium, and I do remember Wandsworth. We didn't have any different condition for the work getting done.
There was a number over
Right,
the years
yeah.
that essentially to force them to upgrade the sanitary system,
Oh, right, but there was,
required that
that
they
wasn't imposed by the zoning board. That was.
that was imposed by the zoning board of appeals. It was a condition of your approval.
Mhm.
That the sanitary system needs to be upgraded.
Well, it was
before
nothing
they
that
can do the
that
work.
was already in place
That was a condition
on
that
a
the
number of
board
ones
made.
that we did.
That was a new thing that the board required.
So what was, I don't understand what's different with this guy.
Well, it's,
Well,
it's not-
some,
Well, if a lot didn't need a natural resources special permit, they could just get a building permit, and they have been over the years, just getting building permits for work. And the fact that the sanitary system is pretty much done at this point, it's almost done, not quite done. We were okay, I think, with it.
I think it's fair enough to say,
I
go
think
ahead
that
with
At
it.
this point, that, they're not gonna not do the work. And he still has to get an extension of time, he still has to apply for a building permit. By the time all that's done, they'll probably have their green stamp from the county.
right.
Well, in that case, I'm in favor of changing the condition, council.
Okay.
I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
I mean, he's basically just looking to get a building permit.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been
Otherwise, we have
approved.
to wait till the fall.
It's just to get a building permit.
right, exactly.
And from my understanding, he's an elderly gentleman, so he just wants to get the process going.
I'm
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Do I have to be okay with it? I'm not really okay with it.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to amend the
Ed, you want to make a motion?
approved approval and such.
Amend the previous approval.
Yeah.
Then in the case of Thomas Wanzelak at 826 East End Drive, Unit 826, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-32.1-1-226. I'd like to make a motion to amend the previous approval, previous ZBA approval on this, in this matter.
Second,
I concur.
Concur.
What do we do? No, I don't concur.
Okay.
We have one denial.
All right, works.
No.
Carries.
Okay, next we have extensions of time. We have Gershon at 116 Navy Road, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-26-1-14.
Gershon was in a natural resource special permit for a residence on an unimproved lot on Navy Road. There's actually two of them side by side under the same name. A lot to the north or west, northwest, has been completed, and that's done, and they got a CO. This is the lot that's still unimproved. So I don't know if they're preparing to do the work, but they're extending the permit. The conditions haven't changed on the property. We don't have any issues with it.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Wait, I just
Well,
want to know
when-
what was the date of the original?
I don't know.
Well,
2019, I want to say, but I'm not certain.
It's a while ago.
It's not significantly old.
Okay.
Can we see a motion?
Is everybody?
you got a motion?
We agreed here?
Mhm.
Anybody has any other conversation?
It's
Okay.
2019, yeah.
Then in the case of Gershon, 116 Navy Road, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-26-1-14, I'd like to make a motion to approve the extension of time in this matter.
Second,
Concur.
Concur, thank you. Next, we have Senior, 200 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-152-1-10, extension of a 2015 determination.
Yeah, so this one's obviously older, but the work is nearing completion. The work started, I want to say last summer. And I went to the property recently. The project limiting fencing is still up and in good condition. Looks like they're getting close to being done. So they're extending it, to get their CO, so essentially at this point.
Can we see a motion for that?
Yes, in the matter of Senior 200 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-152-1-10, make a motion to approve the extension of time as requested.
Second.
Concur.
concur.
Concur, thank you. Next, we have the draft minutes of Tuesday, June 24th.
Okay, yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the draft minutes from Tuesday, June 24th for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Next, we have resolutions. We have Jose Santiago and Yanilsa Munoz at 232 3 Mile. East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-143-1-1. Remember, members, this was the one where they were going to build a foundation under a house and legalize a shed and whatnot, and then a stone wall. So with that, I make a motion to adopt the resolution of Jose Santiago and Yanilsa Munez at 232 3 Mile Harbor Road, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-143-1-1 as written.
Second.
Concur.
Thank you.
Did we do Gavalis already?
No, good policy, I think we
Resolution?
held from last week.
Oh, we did? Okay. I thought we did. Okay.
I thought we did the other
It was
one already.
tabled? We tabled Longobardo, but I don't remember. Okay.
We tabled both?
Next, we have George and Anastasia Gavalis at 43 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-179-1-9. Member Mary?
Yep. So everyone remember, this was the application to expand the GFA of the house within the existing footprint, as well as to expand the footprint of the house seaward of the or landward, excuse me, landward of the bluff crest for a new garage, and also to expand the driveway. This was a unanimous approval, I believe, by the board. So in the matter of George and Anastasia Gavalis, 43 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-179-1-9, and make a motion to accept or to approve, excuse me, the determination as written.
Concur.
Concur, thank you. Next, we have Alicia and Guy Longobardo at 42 Hampton Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-174-7-15.
Thank you. You'll recall this was a total redevelopment of an existing house, expanding the house. It required pyramid variations and a fair number of very significant wetland setbacks in an NRSP. This was, I believe, a 3-2 approval, right? You didn't know, yeah, 3-2 approval. And is there anything else I have to mention on this? Okay, so in the matter of Alicia and Guy Longobardo, 42 Hampton Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-174-7-15, I make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
Concur. Thank you. Next, we have James Brennan at 122 South Essex Street at Montauk in Suffolk County, tax map number 300-28-5-42.
And this was a redevelopment, if you recall, in South Essex Street. Two-story house, and they agreed to create a buffer from the wetlands, a 50-foot buffer. But it was a complete redevelopment. So for James Brennan at 122 South Essex Street, Montauk, tax map 300-28-5-42, make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Vice Chair, will you make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session to discuss a legal matter?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting at 8:46 PM. Do I have a second?
Oh,
Second.
concur.
Concur, concur.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussion of a legal matter.
Second.
Concur.